Hello, and welcome to Movie Marathon Mood, the show where we watch movies and talk about them. It's as simple as that. And today we're culminating the Monsterverse with the epic rematch between Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and King Kong himself in Godzilla vs. Kong. We're going to talk about what makes this worth watching. Is it fun? Is it stupid? Is it both? It's all here on Movie Marathon Mood.
We need Kong. The world needs him to stop what's coming.
It's Godzilla.
I keep reaching for greatness because I'm built from it.
Who bows to who?
Nobody gon' stop me. Here we go.
Kong bows to no one.
Here we go.
Hi, I'm Jesse Goldstrap, joined by my pal Drew Cordell. Drew, my friend, it's time for the showdown.
Yes, indeed. It really hasn't been that long time coming, honestly.
No,
The
not in terms of this specific series. at
right,
least.
but the last time King Kong and Godzilla did meet on screen, it was in the '60s. So I suppose it is a long time coming.
Yeah, the legacy is quite large.
Right. And it's kind of hard for me to know like the metrics of how much interest is in something when I'm a fan of it. It's kind of hard to step outside and be like, well, how much is the general public going to be excited for this?
Right.
Um, but just in terms of the response to the movie over the last few days, since everyone's been able to see it on HBO Max or go to the theater, and at this point that we're talking, this is has been the most successful opening for a film in the States since COVID, since this all started. I think that's correct. Uh, I mean, and it's made some huge numbers overseas as well. So it's going to be viewed as a success, especially for the time the situation that we're in right now. But just in general, like Twitter has been kind of a buzz with a whole lot of positive things, and most of them have been from people that I you know don't think were generally huge fans of Godzilla or King Kong, just people that like movies. So it's been interesting to see that, and there's been a big movement now to kind of um, like a release the Snyder cut or a restore the Snyderverse type thing. Now we have a hashtag continue the Monsterverse, and we'll talk about that a little bit more after we kind of discuss the movie itself. But it's been really interesting to kind of see this positive feedback that it's having, and just see it kind of be a surprise hit in a lot of ways, because I don't know if this would have been as successful if COVID had not happened. Like, I don't know if it would have been the same response, because it's almost like, hey, this is the first like real, just kind of, we've had a couple of big movies since this all happened. Tenet came out, and Wonder Woman 84, and Um, there have been other big releases, but like this just kind of feels like a big event type blockbuster movie, and it feels like one of the first ones that we've had in a long time. And maybe that's just all it took, or was just that kind of movie. It didn't matter what it was. Maybe that's what was the tipping point, or maybe people just were that excited about it. I don't know, but it's been really kind of fascinating to watch.
Well, I will say that the timing of this or all around is uh, quite quite a time in general. Just because, like for instance, the Thursday before the movie came out, I personally received my first COVID vaccine,
Yeah,
the first dose of Moderna, and outside of myself, that's just a part of what's been happening in general. People have been vaccinated more and more. Cases have been going down. We've had a recent spike, but the light is at the end of the tunnel. I think we're seeing the end of the pandemic, and Regal Cinemas finally opened back up. So that one of the other bigger theater chains, opening back up the
yeah,
weekend for this movie. It, it's it, it just goes to show that things are slowly getting back to normal
right,
too. And this movie had the widest release than any movie since the pandemic as well. It's on more screens than any movie previously in the past year. So uh, obviously that's part and parcel to the response and the event nature of it. And I personally went to see it in an IMAX theater on opening day, which was kind of spur of the moment. Um, because it's not like I've been getting out a whole lot this past year at all,
right,
and I've been trying to keep it very safe and staying inside and all that sort of good stuff this whole time, and not wanting to go out and eat at restaurants because every restaurant I have seen seems to be like jam packed with people
yeah,
from table to table, and I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna do that anytime soon, but in a movie theater, I did go see Tenet when it came out like half a year ago,
yeah,
and there was only like a handful of people in the theater with me, all
yeah,
masked up and very spread apart. So
hmm,
that felt very safe, and I kind of thought I'll go see Godzilla versus Kong, and there were a lot more people compared to Tenet um, in that theater, and again, it was on opening day as well, the first showing that you could go to, which was like in the afternoon. So, don't know how it was every screening, but there were more people and maybe like 30 or so people. But still in a very large theater, everybody I saw was wearing a mask. I kind of told myself if I didn't feel safe, I was going to just leave, you
right,
know. And they even had signs up in the theater that said, uh, you can come and speak to us if you don't feel safe and get a refund. So that tells you what type of time we're in. That's a sign they actually have posted up in the lobby of a theater, that you can get refunded if you don't feel safe. But I felt I was very far apart from everybody,
yeah,
mask and all everywhere. It's like, okay, I feel safe. And then when the movie starts, and it is, without even getting deep into criticism yet, uh, just a crowd pleasing kind of movie.
yeah,
And the audience actually like cheered and applauded towards the end of the movie. And as we always do, we're going to get into spoilers and break down anything and everything that happens in the movie. So I'll just put that banner up right now that yes, we're going to get into it,
right,
and say that like at the end when Kong takes the head off of Mecha Godzilla, the crowd cheered and applauded, and it felt like, I don't know, it felt like a real, not just a good theater moment, but a light at the end of the tunnel moment in
yeah,
terms of, oh yeah, this is what I've been missing this whole time. This Watching a movie with the crowd, having fun, enjoying the movie sort of thing. This is awesome. And it actually reminded me of a movie experience from 25 years ago, Independence Day, which has another Godzilla connection, of course, because of Roland Emmerich's
Right.
follow-up movie. But that's a unrelated point, really. Not to get into the '98 Godzilla, which we certainly could get into that movie more in depth. But Independence Day in particular was just such a big theatrical moment.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain what that was exactly, but it's just a fun, crowd pleasing movie that everybody went to see, and it was just a thrill ride to watch. And Godzilla versus Kong reminded me of that. The spectacle, the event nature of it, the crowd response. It was just fun, just
Yeah.
pure fun. And the other side about it, though, too, like Independence Day specifically, was years later, decades later, they finally made a sequel, Resurgence. And obviously, it's without Will Smith and also not as good. But I don't think it's quite as steep a drop off in quality as some people made it out to be. Because I saw some people talking about Resurgence and saying this movie is really dumb. And I'm thinking, did you not see the first movie?
Right.
The first movie is really dumb,
Yeah.
but it's just fun and you don't care. You just shut your brain off, enjoy the movie, enjoy the ride. Yes, it's dumb. It's really dumb. And that kind of segues more into Godzilla versus Kong. Um, the same thing. Like it's not trying to be anything but candy.
Right.
That's what it is. And I just personally like uh, spoilers again. This is not a
No.
masterpiece. Um, it's not an A+ movie.
No.
But before I even give a grade on it, I still think it's worth saying I had a blast watching it.
Right.
And that before finally saying exactly where I land on it, that means something.
Yeah.
It means a lot just to say I had a fun time watching this. It is what it is, very much so, and that's fine, and that's okay. It knows what it is too.
Right.
It very much knows what it is. It's a very specific kind of movie. And sure, could it be better? Yeah. Yeah, sure. It definitely could be a better movie in some ways. I mean, who knows? I mean, there's room for it to be a masterpiece. It's not impossible for Godzilla versus Kong to be a truly amazing movie,
Right.
but that doesn't mean that's what this had to be. And I, for one, am happy to let it be what it is.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. I had a blast watching it, and on top of that, just the theatrical experience really was something too. Um, I don't know that I'm going to the theater regularly anytime, but at the same on the same token, I feel relieved thinking about this pandemic being over and having fun watching movies in a theater again.
Yeah. It seems like this was a fitting movie to kind of come back to the theater for you uh, because I didn't get to watch it in a theater, or I haven't. I might if the opportunity presents itself. I just might because I definitely like it enough.
And plus, like I said before, Kong Skull Island and Godzilla King of the Monsters, I saw both of those in IMAX,
Right.
and this one as well. I saw Godzilla versus Kong in IMAX, and not that that makes it bad to watch it at home, because it's obviously awesome that you can watch it at home on HBO Max now.
Yeah.
Everybody can just check it out at home if you have this service. But IMAX for giant monsters just seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah. and I definitely did myself see it on HBO Max, and I agree that it definitely kind of screams IMAX to see the spectacle, and hopefully I'll be able to do it. But if not, I'm not gonna be completely heartbroken that I didn't get a chance. But Tenet was the last movie I saw in a theater as well, and it was a similar experience for me. That it was kind of a not very crowded, and everybody was spread out. And I'm not really too worried about going to the theaters again, just because I think that most of the theater chains have been pretty pretty respectful during this whole thing, and a lot of them have kind of faced the end of their businesses, but they haven't been as crazy as some restaurants that like try to defy state laws and national laws, and try to get everybody in, like the mayor from Jaws. Uh, it's fine, it's fine. But the
And
I
some theaters show Jaws, so that's
right, that's that's a whole other ball of wax. But speaking of Jaws, I think just because this is the kind of movie I can't really talk about it like a normal movie. I can't go like, well, here's the plot, because I mean the plot's in the title. Honestly, um, it's it's kind of strung together, uh, but I think it's done so in a way, and it's interesting that you said mentioned Independence Day specifically, but like this does kind of feel like a Roland Emmerich style movie, um, and that you just kind of have these characters that are like quickly introduced, and then they're just thrown into the mix. Um, that's pretty much most of the Roland Emmerich movies. Even I kind of got some Michael Bay vibes from it. But anyway, like the first big sequence that we get, or the first, confrontation between Kong and Godzilla, is that water sequence,
yeah.
which to me is still, probably the best part of the movie. And there were some shots that were reminiscent of Jaws, kind of like with the buoys and stuff in Jaws, but instead it's like parts of like ships that are on chains and everything. And it's just kind of like the scale, and I really appreciate Adam Wingard's kind of visual flair for just the showing the actual scale of these monsters in broad daylight with no obscured clouds or anything like that we've kind of touched on in the other two Godzilla movies, not Kong Skull Island, because that was the other one that had very clear shots of the monsters and everything else. They kind of keep that from Skull Island in this, and I think it works really well. But I just kind of love the fact that you got Godzilla kind of underwater, and like when he surfaces, his spikes are like bigger than most of the ships, could tear them in half. And then you have Kong. Like one of my favorite parts is like when he's looking at the ships that Godzilla is around, and you're like, oh, okay, he's going to try to save. No, he's not. He's just looking for somewhere to jump.
Yeah.
Um, and then he starts using the jets as like darts. Uh, and throws one at Godzilla. There's a really cool moment where the pilot ejects, and right before the jet explodes. It's really cool, um, and I really like the way that's built up. Um, if I can like, I- I'm of some conflict of how I feel about this movie because I really did enjoy it. I really did, and because there's no pretentiousness to it. It like you said, it knows what it is, but it is cool with what it is too. It's not trying to be anything else, so I can't really fault it too much because a lot of times, uh, some of these movies, like specifically a lot of MCU movies and stuff, and this isn't like a takedown on those because I enjoy those, as movie going experiences. I really do. But a lot of times there will be like a hint of something more, but it's not really there. And the- some people will just embrace that and go, "Oh, these movies are so great." And there's none of that in Godzilla versus Kong, and I appreciate that. I like just big dumb action movies sometimes, and I don't need them to try to pretend like that's not exactly what they are. Um, and I really enjoy that about this. Some things that I'm not as crazy about. Um, First off, I there was something about the way that Kong looked in this. I wasn't 100%. I didn't. I guess I didn't dislike it, but it kind of seemed off. I don't know if it was like his face or his head like looked kind of weird, and I don't know if it was because they tried to make him look older, which obviously he is from Skull Island, but I preferred the look of Kong and Skull Island to this. But that's kind of a minor nitpick. But the big problem I had uh, was Mechagodzilla, who I think was kind of tacked on. They could have done a better job of setting him up. I mean, I think the setup's good enough. Like, okay, you have Millie Bobby Brown back with kind of a crew she's got. You got, podcaster and her friend, and they investigate this Apex company, and ultimately, kind of a Scooby-Doo plot, figure out that Apex has been developing Mechagodzilla, and that's the whole reason Godzilla's been attacking everybody. And I thought I guess that's a good enough way to introduce Mechagodzilla. But the design, I just did not care for it, and it looked kind of like like a Michael Bay Transformer, um, and it's just kind of awkwardly shaped and everything. And I didn't necessarily buy it being able to just completely dominate Godzilla, who's a pretty big boy. Uh, this little kind of dinky robot is you know pushing him around. It was just kind of a different thing, and I wasn't a huge fan of the way they threw him in there. Um, I think that there have been some really cool ways to introduce Mechagodzilla in the past. He was in the original Mechagodzilla movie, he was an alien or controlled by aliens, which is goofy and stupid. But that's what it's meant to be. But in the 90s Heisei series, he was kind of a mech created by the humans to fight Godzilla, and Godzilla against Mechagodzilla and Tokyo SOS, which are two from the 2000s series that Toho did. Again, it's the same thing. It's a mech piloted by humans to fight Godzilla. Um, and in Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, one of the cool things that they did was they actually built Mechagodzilla around the bones of the 1954 Godzilla. And it makes sense why Mechagodzilla goes crazy, because I guess it hears Godzilla's roar in the bone memory or something. I mean, it's not actual science. It's this is kaiju movies. It's not supposed to be taken seriously or too seriously. But that causes Mechagodzilla to go on a rampage. The pilots don't have any control of it. That's like probably my favorite version of Mechagodzilla. And there's a little bit of that here. You've got him piloted by a character that's Ren Sarazawa, and that's supposed to be the son of Kim Watanabe's, the Dr. Sarazawa from the two previous movies. But if you didn't know, I mean, it's like you really know absolutely nothing about Kim Watanabe's character anyway. But his son, even less so. It doesn't even matter who he is, because he's just kind of a henchman. And it's just, and again, it's fine, but it seems like there's a little bit more that could have been fleshed out here to make it just a little more interesting, to make the Mecha Godzilla stuff hit a little harder. I think it could have been cool, um, but it just kind of feels tacked on. But it's not bad enough to where I it took me out of the movie or anything, because I still enjoyed it. Like I said, it's just kind of preference, and um, I just wasn't crazy about the design. But Godzilla himself, I really thought was cool. We get a lot of interesting like close-ups of Godzilla's face. It see facial expressions and all sorts of stuff in this, and see him fight Kong 3 times, really. And that was another thing I liked too, is that the fights, it wasn't like completely one sided. You had Godzilla win best 2 out of 3, but Kong ends up saving him from Mecha Godzilla. So they kind of respect each other. That's how, I like the draw, or I don't guess you can call it a draw, but the way things end with mutual respect, that could have been really cheap, but they built them up pretty well, and I think it paid off. And I think that ending is pretty good, because Godzilla kind of walks away, still king of the monsters, but Kong gets the Hollow Earth and gets to sit on his throne there, and I thought that was cool. I really did like Kong, uh, the Kong story better in this than I did the Godzilla one. And I like the way that Kong is really almost a human character anyway. And that's kind of been true since the 1933 classic. He's a little bit more relatable than Godzilla. You're not going to be able to convince Godzilla or get Godzilla to be strapped to a battleship. It's just not going to happen. Um, so Kong is kind of the most sympathetic character in this movie, and it's fun to watch it, to watch him in it and the discoveries he makes. And I thought Hollow Earth was really cool, and that's kind of, if there's one thing I want to kind of give Adam Wingard visually, I think his flair for the environment of the movie is probably like his strongest point, because the visuals of Hollow Earth are incredible, and I can only imagine how awesome it looked in IMAX. But it looked really good on my TV, and you know you can feel however anyone wants to feel about another kaiju movie having a Hong Kong sequence after Pacific Rim, which no, it didn't even come close to Pacific Rim, but that's not fair. Uh, but I think it there was a visual flair that some of the other films in the series didn't have. Um, so I really enjoyed that. All in all, and I haven't mentioned the human characters much. I've because there's not really much to say. I think that I really like Gia, the little girl, the deaf girl that has the connection with Kong. I like that. I seemed like there could have been a little bit more to it, and I really like Rebecca Hall, and I think she was fine in this, and Alexander Skarsgård. But again, there's really not enough there, just enough to kind of further the plot. I give this one a B. It's a lot of fun. It's really enjoyable. I do prefer Kong Skull Island and King of the Monsters to this, but I definitely see why this is having kind of a mass appeal because not everybody is super familiar with these characters, especially some of the side characters from Godzilla's long cinematic history. So this is kind of a fun entry point because some people are going to see this not having seen any of the MonsterVerse movies yet, and I think you can do that. There's obviously going to be things that you don't pick up on, but I do think that this has it going for it, and really all of them do because they are all kind of standalone. But yeah, so this is a solid B. I could be more, but again, it's not trying to be, and it's not pretending to be, and I'm cool with that. It's cool with what it is. If you're cool with what it is, I think you're going to enjoy it.
If we're just talking visuals alone, um, this movie's got a very kinetic, neon, vibrant look to it. I still think that Kong Skull Island takes the cake in terms of um, visual, being visually dynamic and
Yeah,
um, yeah, just being the best looking of the bunch. But this is a good looking movie.
yeah,
Ben Saracen or Searson, however you pronounce his name, cinematographer. He's done some interesting movies. Unstoppable is a really good movie. I think maybe we've talked about maybe having that in an episode at some point because I don't think you've seen it.
right.
Tony Scott's last movie. That's a fun, dynamic ride. He did Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, which I'm not going to pretend that's a good movie, but it does have some visually awesome parts to it. Um, so anyway, it is Godzilla versus Kong is a good looking fun movie. I will give it the edge in terms of its fights, though. The
Yeah,
fight sequences are just awesome and epic and just crowd pleasing fun
yeah,
too. I think that's a lot of the key there. Um, I did think it was kind of silly when they said that, oh, looks like Kong won round two.
oh yeah, that was a dumb line.
What do you mean round two? This isn't. There's nobody. I mean, maybe they should have had somebody hold up a sign at some point that they were in a ring. Uh, round two, ding. But the fight wasn't necessarily over, and it literally wasn't over. They picked it up as
Right,
soon as they got their bearings again. Like, I don't know how you can define that as round one, round two. That's just silly and a little much. And I guess you could say it's supposed to be a meta wink
right,
to the idea that that's what people are going to take away from this, because some people are looking at this literally as like a title match. Who would win in a fight? And like we've talked about, who's team which, Team Godzilla, Team Kong. And if I had to pick, I'd say I'm Team Kong, but it's not like I care.
Right.
And if you want to be really frank about it, um, Godzilla's clearly the stronger creature. So like I don't, and that showcases in this movie as well that Godzilla's stronger. Um,
Right.
Kong can be quite clever, and you can give him an axe, and that'll help. But an axe powered by whatever the hell's happening in the core. But like, and that kind of gets me to some of the stupid stuff in this movie. And there's a lot of stupid stuff in this movie,
Yeah.
but I think what takes the cake for me is that when they were in the Hollow Earth, and uh, the one character, Isa Gonzalez character, Maya Simmons, which I
Yeah.
definitely didn't remember her name off the top of my head. Um, but whenever she's down there and she's like, "By the way, I'm evil,
Oh,
and I'm gonna
yeah.
send up a signal to my dad." And I'm like, "You're in the middle of the earth. How are you sending
Right.
anything? With what technology are you sending a signal from the Hollow Earth?" Like they needed a special ship just to get down there. And then
Right.
when they went down there, they went through that sort of portal as they switched their gravitational pull to the center of the earth. Like I don't understand how they could just send a signal up, and then whenever Godzilla's like, "Hey, Kong's down there," and he like blasts down straight, hole straight down, and
Right.
Kong just jumps up there, and they fly up, and they kind of ignore everything that it took to get down there,
Right.
and they
Yeah.
just easily hop back up. That's weird. That's really dumb. And plus, that Maya Simmons character, whenever she says, "By the way, I'm evil," she does it right next to Kong, and there's not like that many characters around. Maybe she should have just kept her mouth shut and then just
Right.
left. And instead she gets crushed.
Yeah.
You're like, "You're never getting away from this. What are you doing?" That's really dumb stuff. Like, yeah, this movie is not about its plot, and the plot is very thin. Uh, like the way that they shorted Mecha Godzilla is stupid too.
Yeah.
Let's just pour this whiskey or whatever exactly it was
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
uh, over the panel, and that'll get it. Which I will say that I like Millie Bobby Brown in
Yeah.
Stranger Things, and I think she's a good presence, but I'm not 100% sure what's happening with her character in this movie
Right.
completely. I don't know. I wasn't completely buying it, but I do like her friend in this, Julian Dennison. He was in a movie called Hunt for the Wilder People. It's a Taika Waititi movie.
Right.
Him and Sam Neill are the leads in that movie, and that's a really terrific movie. I don't know if you've seen that one,
I
but
have
it's
not, but it's been on my radar.
very much worth checking out. It's a fun, charming movie, and he's great in it. But I found his character in this movie. I mean, not that it was the worst or anything, but I don't. They keep adding characters that are just loud and constantly making jokes, and it's like I'd like
Right.
somebody to have a little bit more to them. And right along with them, obviously, is Brian Tyree Henry, who
Right.
I guess he's terrific in a lot of things. I really like um, Atlanta, but the TV show Atlanta. But even though he's somebody that I like, um, they kind of hop and skip through that so fast, like just way too fast in terms of understanding his conspiracy podcasts and stuff. Like it's just,
Right.
oh man, now we're gonna take a rocket ship to Hong Kong. Like they blast through that literally so fast, without a chance to get our bearings as an audience. Which is kind of like what you're getting at as far as like the Godzilla storyline versus the Kong storyline. Um, the Godzilla storyline tries to keep that conspiratorial bend, but it doesn't really do a lot with it. So it's hard to really connect with it in the same way. But you have the attempt to try to have this conspiratorial storyline with Godzilla, but it just doesn't have a whole lot of weight to it in the same way that the Kong storyline kind of makes more sense. Not that anything in this movie makes a whole lot of sense,
Right.
but but the Kong storyline is more relatable, just inherently more relatable. And there's room for that Godzilla storyline to be better and for us to care more about the conspiracy. But it's kind of like what we talked about in the previous movies, where I don't really know completely what the who is doing what to and for what purposes in terms of managing Godzilla.
Right.
It's just way too vague for it to completely work. And in this movie, obviously, it's because we're making Mecha Godzilla, but like I like it, but I can pick on it at the same time. It's
Yeah.
fun in a stupid movie kind of way, but as far as actually like being something that truly works, I could pick on it. Um, the Kong storyline, I really like Rebecca Hall, as you mentioned, and her daughter character in this. That stuff is handled really well. And Rebecca Hall is somebody that I've liked for a while. I really liked Vicky Cristina Barcelona, and she's great in that movie. And she's a good presence here. And as much as I like Alexander Skarsgård, I'm not sure that he serves a complete purpose in this movie.
No.
And I don't really know what his character is completely because he seems to be on the outside, but then he is very much an insider character once they bring
Right.
him into the fold and seems to be leading the charge. It's kind of a mixed bag in terms of who this character is, but then he kind of wants to save the day by supercharging Kong and restarting his heart with that ship
Right.
and sacrifices himself possibly and tries to, do something quite dangerous to restart Kong's heart. But I'm thinking, I don't know that we really needed that character. And that is definitely a Roland Emmerich thing of like an ensemble. And Roland Emmerich has nothing to do with this movie, but it's like that's
Right.
a style of thing where you just have like this huge ensemble. And that's something that all these movies have had is like a great cast. Like you have all these actors, and then you're wondering why do we have all these actors when they're not doing anything um, besides mostly just being there. But it's not like they get to showcase no personality in this movie, and that's something that's very very key for me is that I thought this movie had fun, and I
Yeah.
haven't always felt that with the previous Godzilla movies. In this series was like the sense that we were having fun. And as much as I'm picking on this movie and saying that parts of it were quite dumb, because they were, I still nothing lasted. Like everything moves so fast that whatever part you could pick on, nothing really lasted all that long. It just
Right.
moves at quite a pace and is just fun all the way through. I never was bored. And it's a short movie too, relative to a lot of blockbusters. Um, a lot of blockbusters have often been like 2.5 hours long, and this one
Yeah.
is under two, and it
Right.
it just moves and doesn't waste time, and that's in a lot of ways to be appreciated.
Yeah.
It just does what it does, and I enjoy that. I would land on a B plus
Okay.
for this movie. I think it just even though I could rip it apart all day long, at the end of the day, it's a fun movie, you know?
Right.
And I can't fault it too hard for just being like an entertainment in that regard. And I really had to bring up again that Independence Day connection, just because I think that's uh, interesting. That you know, how many movies have we had in that 25 years that are kind of like that? Obviously, we've had plenty of big splashy blockbusters, but you don't always have that just big dumb fun roller coaster in quite this same way.
Right.
The epic event kind of thing. And it's hard to replicate that too, because back when Independence Day came out, it was novel to see the White House blown up.
Right.
And people were like, "Holy cow! Isn't that crazy that we can see these monuments blown up?" And now people, not that people can't be impressed by a good visual, but that's not going to impress
Yeah.
people quite the same way. So the spectacle becomes like, let's see two titans clashing with each other. Two
Right.
legends like these characters that have been around for a century. uh, we can really enjoy this on that event nature of it, and have something like Hollow Earth, which is quite cool to see, but also just like, oh wow, we're doing this.
Right.
We're 100% doing this, because they suggested Hollow Earth in the earlier movies, obviously, but I know we're actually going there, um, and really fast too.
Right.
And that's kind of like, if we're going to get into criticism again, like, can you imagine if the series really was like truly getting into them pursuing Hollow Earth, and the scientists, and like them discovering things, and that process actually happening? What is happening with these government organizations and other characters that are investigating it, and they make this discovery, and it could be really filled with awe and terror and all these sorts of epic things. And we definitely don't get that. We don't get that on the same scale, that
Right.
same epic sensibility. Doesn't have to be a bad thing, but uh, I can imagine a great version of this too. I can't fault this for what it is, but I can imagine a great version of it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely, and I mean, there's probably another cut, and I don't mean this in the this wasn't what it was intended, but um, and obviously there's going to be longer cuts of movies. That's not a unique thing, but you had Zhang Ji was supposed to be in the movie. She was cast reprising her role from King of the Monsters. Nowhere to be seen. Um, Lance Reddick, who is just awesome, is in the theatrical cut of this movie just to deliver one line. I can't imagine that was the extent of his role in the script, or why he signed on to do the movie. I'm sure there was a little bit more to it. Um, it feels like there's kind of something under the surface to this movie that could be more, but it's obviously uh, never delved too much into. Um, but again, it doesn't have to, and I definitely appreciate that it doesn't wear out its welcome. Like you mentioned, the length, like just under 2 hours, is perfect for something like this. It doesn't try to drag things out. It doesn't try to beef things up. It just keeps it lean and keeps it mean, and I think that's what makes it so enjoyable. Um, so it's been good to see it kind of thrive, and people really vibe with it and like it and enjoy it. And it's, I think, like by far, is in terms of like just the experience that I've had, like seeing people react to these movies. I think this is having like the most mainstream positive response out of any of them, uh, or it just seems that way right now. Um, and now they're kind of calling to continue the MonsterVerse, and who knows what the decision will be. I kind of think it was obvious they were kind of intending to just kind of end it with Godzilla versus Kong, because King of the Monsters had not been as successful as the other two at the box office, and they were kind of in a corner. They were already doing Godzilla versus Kong, and these movies are kind of expensive, but but nevertheless, here we are, and this is like the first post-pandemic hit, um, and I think that the Legendary and Warner Brothers are probably going to look at doing more, and really, there's tons of possibilities. And I don't want to get too lost in trying to come up with like dream list of what I would like to see, but I do think it'd be interesting to see where they go from here, and what they do next, and I do hope that they kind of at least follow the pattern of this movie in terms of just like delivering on the fun, but I would like a little bit more to it as well. Just a little more, um, just a little more to put it over the edge. But definitely, this one kind of sets the bar high for the monster action. And as you mentioned, and I wanted to point it out too, that I think this has easily got the best monster fights of the series, of this series in particular. And I was really impressed. But again, I still think that battleship battle kind of takes the cake. I just really enjoy the way, like you mentioned, Godzilla is really the strong one. He's got the atomic breath. He's got the physical strength, and Kong's strong too, but he has to be a lot more resourceful. And I think that's what made it so much fun to watch them interact, especially in the ocean uh, battle, because that's kind of Godzilla's environment, being able to swim and everything. And I don't know. I really had a good time. Uh, had a great time with this.
I also had a great time just seeing them smash through skyscrapers.
Yes.
Holy cow. And there's no regard for much of what's happening on the ground with the people like that are in the
No.
city. Like, man, what destruction is happening? Because the monsters sure don't care. I mean, the humans are ants, you know.
Right.
But yeah, it, an enjoyable, fun ride. Um, Definitely worth checking out. You know, it's at the very least a solid movie. Interesting capper to the series. We'll see what happens, if anything, beyond this. I'm sure at the very least, if there's not this specific series, there will be more Godzilla, more Kong, in
Right.
one way, shape, or form. That's not gonna go anywhere, and that's a good thing. But it's been fun chatting this with you, my friend.
Yes.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. See you next time on Movie Marathon Mood.